Alright, so let's step outside our normal working project and go over here to a file called flipper left, and I'll leave you guys with two starting files for creating flippers, and this is what it'll probably look like. Just a very simple piece of vector artwork in here. You can see there's really nothing to it other than the shape itself that I would recommend starting with for your flippers and doing a little bit of research. I've kind of found that flippers generally for most standard tables come in a couple sizes. This is kind of what I traced over one of the larger sizes. So there are smaller flippers out there, and hey, it's up to you how large or small you want these to be, but I would say you generally don't go much longer than this, and if you were to go smaller, I'd say probably cut it off like maybe about here. Your flippers can, of course, look like anything and fancy them up as much as you want. But if you're going to bring them into my starter kit, what you should do is save them out in a file, or I should say the finished artwork should be exported out like this, so that you actually have basically the pivot point of your flipper right dead center in the middle of the document. You can see that's what these lines are kind of indicating over here, and then you're leaving some empty space over this way, and then inside of Xcode it's going to define the alpha mask around the shape like so. But the most important thing is that it's going to pivot around this center point. So you can see that if I were to just rotate it like this, that's it's rotating around that pivot point, and Xcode is going to do exactly that. And if you tried to just export out, you could go over here and it's getting cut off at the bottom, but there is export PNG sequence. If you export it out that shape, then the pivot point is basically going to be in the middle of the flipper, and then when you're in your game, something like that's going to happen. So that's what you want to avoid. Okay, so just in terms of creating the flipper, let's go in and we're going to double click inside of this shape. So I guess we'll just start with what I've got inside of here. All I did really was just make a circle and another circle, and then just kind of connected them together with lines. So let's do this. Let's give it a little bit of a beveling, and I'm going to increase that just a bit. Let's take the strength down some, and I guess it's hard to see the white part on here, but if this was a different color, let's say blue, then you'd obviously see that we've got some of that white beveling over there on the top. So it's up to you just how much you'd kind of want to see something like that maybe, but I kind of lean toward white looking flippers, or maybe like a gray color like that. And of course we could always take this back into our main table. Let's just put and just see what that's going to look like. Yeah, I kind of prefer the white flippers. So double click back inside of here, and let's also, after we do that beveling, let's include in here a glow effect, which we're going to put on the inside of it. Loving the inner glow this series. So make it dark, click off inner glow, and I guess we probably want to, in terms of the stack, include this in here first. So this is going to be the first filter that gets applied. Let's bump this up to 10 and 10, and then play around with the strength. So we got something like that happening, which I think looks pretty good. And then from here, you could maybe, and we don't really need super complex flippers, but what you could do is duplicate that same shape. All right, so then just decrease it down some, so you get something like that happening. And you could maybe tint this, some sort of kind of inner pattern on the inside of it. I'd probably get rid of some of those filters though if you're going to do that. Let's fold that up. Let's take the strength down on the glow in that case. Tint down just a little bit. And then let's actually duplicate the shape so we can extend this out a little bit further. And we can double click inside of here. Let's view this as a wireframe, and that way we can probably get away with just moving this out this way. So shrink it down a little bit, so let's go maybe 85% of what it's currently at, maybe just a tad more, 95, And then we'll just connect this to over here, so be sure that snap is on. That looks good. There we go. And yeah, like I said, don't have to go too crazy with it. Maybe you could do one of those like little tiny screws that I put all over the place on here. Let's see what that might look like. So there you go, something. Yeah, that's not bad. Maybe even rotate a little bit. So let's again, just to see what this looks like, let's put it into our file. But again, when it comes to actually exporting this out, we want to do it from this file and export out the entire document size as a PNG. But let's give it a shot. And I thought I pasted that in. There we go. Put duplicated items into the folder. And I should merge all these into one. Let's just call this flipper left. And I'm going to have to move that pivot point because when I created a symbol out of it, it put the pivot in the middle. Again, the thing that you want to avoid ultimately. And we'll just flip this around over that way. And let's see what that looks like. Pretty good. I mean, again, this is all just for layout, but you know, you could include in your actual Xcode document a separate exported image that would act as a drop shadow for the flippers, and then just, you know, parent that to the actual flipper itself. It's kind of a technical term if you're not using the kit, so don't worry about it too much. But the point is, it is possible to do a drop shadow, and we've kind of done a lot of shadowing in here, so it looks a little weird that we don't have one for our flipper. So let's go ahead and just do that, and copy all filters, paste that into there, and I think that looks pretty good. Let's see what that would look like raised up. I think I mentioned this before, but your flippers really, I don't think go more than about 60 degrees. So if this is your lower angle, you know, you're only going up maybe about 60 up to over there. So, you know, you're not going to do something like this. And we haven't actually set in any bumpers over here, but one thing you're going to want to avoid is putting them too close to the flippers. So for example, try not to do something like this. And one of my old pinball games that I created, old Coco's 2D days, I did this, and I made a lot of old school pinball players mad because this really limits the amount that you can kind of aim with the ball. So, and you can kind of see actually in this table, I might have to move these over a little bit, or move that one over that way, just so there's room so that I can have some sort of, you know, bumper over here. But you can also raise it up like that, and of course, you know, it doesn't have to be so tall either. But generally, you do have some sort of alleyway down this way, and something like this. So, you know, there's a little volley back and forth with the some bumpers over there. But you know what? I've seen plenty of tables that don't even have this either. Or what they might have is not this triangle shape, but they might have just something like that, just a kind of a metal piece, you know, like a rail that just juts up. So it kind of makes the ball go into here. But hey, that sounds like something for a different lesson. But looks like we've got our flippers in there, and I'll see you in the next video.